I'm Emily P. Freeman, and welcome to The Next Right Thing. You're listening to episode 369. This is a podcast about making decisions, but also about making a life. If you struggle with decision fatigue, chronic hesitation, or if you just need a few minutes away from the constant stream of information and the sometimes delightful but also distracting hum of entertainment, you're in the right place for discerning your next right thing. I'm an author, a spiritual director, and an occasional workshop leader. I live in North Carolina with my family, and through my work, I've helped thousands of spiritually thoughtful people overcome decision fatigue so that they can discern their next right thing in faith, work, and life. The things we read, watch, listen to, and generally consume will almost always contribute in some way to a conversation we're already having in our heads. It may not be obvious at first, it may take some time to connect the dots, but eventually, the work and words and lives of others, if we're paying attention, will have some kind of impact. If we're lucky, they will help us articulate something we've worked to do on our own for quite some time. If we're smart, we'll keep a record of it. And that is what I'm attempting to do here today, sharing the words from 3 different women and how their words are combining in my mind to bring some clarity to something that I've thought a lot about. I'll bring you in on it now as a witness to my wonderings. Listen in. In September 2022, Taylor Swift stood on the stage at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. She was one of 2 recipients of the Songwriter Artist of the Decade Award by the Nashville Songwriters Association International. It was exactly 1 month before the release of her 10th studio album, Midnights, which is one of my top personal favorites of hers. You can watch her acceptance speech on YouTube or read the whole thing online, which I will link directly to in the show notes. During that speech, she shares about how early on in her songwriting journey, she hoped for a day when, quote, the blending of genres wouldn't be such a big deal. She says, there's so much discussion about genre, and it always usually leads back to a conversation about melody and production. But that leaves out possibly my favorite part of songwriting, lyricism. She goes on to disclose a secret, never been shared publicly songwriting categorization that she uses when she writes her lyrics, in which she imagines what type of writing instrument she might be using when writing different types of songs. There are the quill lyrics, the fountain pen lyrics, and the glitter gel pen lyrics. The definitions of these are exactly as you might expect. Her quill lyrics are those that use antiquated words or phrasing, like something you might write after reading Charlotte Bronte. Think Ivy from her 2020 album, Evermore. Her fountain pen lyrics have a modern storyline with a poetic twist, like All Too Well from Red. And her glitter gel pen lyrics are frivolous, carefree, bouncy, and they don't take themselves too seriously, like, for example, Shake It Off from 1989. I love this quirky and accessible categorization of her lyrics, and it really holds up when you start to dive into them on all of her different albums. But even more, I love that her categories exist at all because it's just a tiny example of something I actually think about a lot. And that is that even though you may feel pressure to choose just one, doesn't mean you have to. I recently read an essay by a writer named Pamela Clapp, who writes a newsletter on Substack called With Love from Paris. The essay was titled, Why the French Don't Obsess Over Purpose. And in it, she writes about what she calls a softer kind of ambition, where work is not your worth and satisfaction counts more than success. Pamela points out the difference between her experience of the way Americans think about work and purpose and the way the French do. Questions like, what's your purpose? What are you building? What are you here for? Are good questions, but in France, she says, they're not humming in the background of every conversation. One of my favorite quotes from the article is this one. She writes, there's often this quiet trust that things will evolve over time. No need to panic about your life path. Just do your job and enjoy your life. And so I've quietly been locating myself somewhere between the words of Taylor Swift and Pamela Clapp, one who is the wealthiest female musician in the world, and the other with just under 2,000 subscribers to her online newsletter, which, by the way, is a job very well done, to be quite sure. But it's also small in comparison to the global superstar that is Taylor Swift. When it comes to words and concepts finding us at the right time, though, it doesn't really matter how big the platform is of the author of those words. What matters is that they're saying them and whether or not we're ready to hear them. And so these two ideas, one of doing the work you love in the way you want to do it, like Taylor Swift's lyric categorizations, and the other of keeping the work in its place, like Pamela's French perspective of ambition. These two ideas have been hanging out in my mind, chatting it up together, creating an important third conversation, of which I'm now a part, and so are you. We all have things that we're always circling around, themes that show up in our journals or in our mind before we fall asleep at night, memories that haunt us, body and soul, that we return to in our conversations with the people who know us the best, the ways we tend to get on our own nerves. It might be a pervasive lack of confidence, a feeling that you're incapable of making a decision by yourself. Maybe it's a lack of clarity about a particular project or a person or a group of people. Maybe it's a regret that you should be further along by now. Every one of us likely has or has had our own version of a thing like this, where over the years, we just can't get it out of our heads. It's something we continue to talk about, continue to worry about, or have anxiety around. For me, one of those things has been wondering if I have to pick between serious and fun, between spiritual formation writing and thrift store finds, between coaching or teaching or spiritual direction or nothing at all. Not only which version of myself is needed or welcome here, but also, do I need to choose one or can I welcome them all? In one of her final episodes of her podcast, 10 Things to Tell You, author Laura Tremaine, who's also a personal friend of mine, shares a little bit about her own becoming over the years, how hosting her podcast has helped her to articulate some of the things that she felt were important to say and to share. And now she's discerned that it's time for her to move on to the next chapter. And she's really excited about that. Well, in her episode called I've Seen What I Needed to See, she talks about some similar themes, how she had realized the ways in which she had allowed her personality, like her Enneagram type, her Myers Briggs, her Strengths Finders results, all of those types of things to, in some way, crystallize her in time, and that she had unknowingly been wearing her own anxiety as a feature of her personality. And I think probably a lot of us can relate to that in some way. But Laura said that she has decided that she wants to be done with angsty energy being a major definer of her identity. And she said, angst on a late 40s privileged mom who has the career of her dreams. It ain't cute. It's not charming. My angsty teenage self who liked to journal while it was raining and pour out my heartbreak. I got a lot of compassion for that version of myself, and I understand why that felt like depth to me, but it doesn't anymore. Depth to me now feels like light. I love this, Laura Tremaine. Thank you for saying it. And I'll also add, and I don't think she's saying this, but I'll just say it with my out loud voice. Clearly, we can't just decide not to be angsty and have it like poof, go away. But she talks about how much work she's done around this in counseling and Pilates and journaling and prayer over the years. And now she's ready to stop giving it so much attention. So, Taylor Swift's lyric categories, Pamela Clapp's French thoughts on ambition, Laura Tremaine's refusal to let angst be her default state of being. What am I actually trying to say? I want to acknowledge the pressure to pick something and to be that thing forever. It could be the way you parent, where you choose to go to church, how you dress, what you read, how you vote or decorate your house. We know in our heads that we are grown-ups and we can do what we want in a lot of these areas, but also we may still question who we are, what we like, and what it looks like to show up as us and not as we think we are expected to show up. Are you country? Are you pop? Are you punk or grunge or folk? What are you? And I love that Taylor Swift says, yes. I also want to acknowledge that this pressure is not a foregone conclusion. It's not a factual reality beneath which we must all live and move and have our being. Though it may make some people more comfortable if we declare ourselves this or that, if we define ourselves by what we're against or for, though it may give us cleaner lines and better talking points if we stick to the damn thing and never waver, though it may be cleaner to choose a lane and stick to it, and we can if we want to. We also don't have to. We can choose to opt out of the labels and the angst that comes along with them. Maybe not in everything, but in some things. It's worth trying on, is all I'm saying. Opting out is always an option. But instead of opting out of difficult conversations or avoiding important decisions, instead of opting out of justice work or peace or engagement or self-reflection, let's try opting out of every system that wants to keep us bound and constrained, of every mindset that keeps us overfunctioning, and of every narrative that says anxiety is our best option. And so, at the risk of bringing in a fourth concept to this already wordy episode, I'll close by saying how grateful I am for the artists who keep doing the deep work of self-reflection and the brave work of sharing their work with strangers. As always, the world is rife with struggle, injustice, heartbreak, and people behaving terribly. And it's also rife with hope, with light, with the subtle breeze of possibility, though these admittedly can be more difficult to access. Even so, here's to doing our next right thing together in love. Thanks for listening to episode 369 of The Next Right Thing. I hope this simple practice of deciding to opt out can be just one more rung on the trellis upon which your rhythm of life can continue to grow. Because while it's true this is a podcast about making decisions, the bigger truth is our daily decisions are making our lives. As I've said before, we're back for this new season of podcast episodes, and I'm thrilled to be here. If you like what you hear, would you consider leaving a 5-star review with a line or two about what you enjoy about the podcast? You can do that on Apple Podcast, especially is helpful, or wherever you listen. And maybe better yet, would you share this episode with your people, friends, online newsletters, social platforms, wherever you consider to be your proverbial water cooler these days? Actually, don't know if I used proverbial right in that sentence. You get what I'm saying. Did I use it right? Moving on. As always, you can find me online at emilypfreeman.com or on Instagram at emilypfreeman. This episode was edited by the team at Unmutable and organized by Ashley Sherlock. In closing, here are a few words from Pamela Clapp. I don't know that I'll ever stop caring about meaning, but I've stopped needing to declare it. What I want now is to live with intention, even when there's no obvious reward. To build a life that's full, not optimized. The French didn't teach me to stop dreaming big, but they did teach me that dreaming big doesn't have to come at the cost of living well. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.